Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drum. We got Parker Thune, got Spencer Forsythe on the board, and the rich get richer as Oklahoma stays hot.
One of those days where you like to be
Muy
among the rich, right?
Muy caliente on the recruiting trail is Oklahoma. So like 4-star, one of the top defensive tackles in the country, and Trent Wilson commits to Oklahoma this evening. This morning, you have one of the better defensive backs in all of Texas, and Malik Hawkins committing to Oklahoma, joining his brother, obviously, Michael Hawkins, who has also been very, very hot on the playing field during spring. It's been a fun 2-3 weeks for Oklahoma now, as far as on the recruiting trail. The number 4 class in the country, and we're gonna get all that. Do we have to pay some bills?
We do not this week. There are no bills to pay. We took care of
There
all
it
that already.
is. There it is. All right, so let's talk about it. What do we want to talk about first? We want to talk Hawkins. We want to talk Wilson.
Well, let's go chronologically here. Let's talk about Malik first,
Okay.
since he was the first of the two to jump on board today.
Well, it's a big get. The first corner, I believe, in the class for Oklahoma. No, is it the first corner in the class? Hold on. I believe it is, isn't it, Parker?
I was thinking
first corner in the class.
Yeah, no, I was thinking because he's not the first defensive back.
No, he's not the first defensive back, but
Malik
is
the first corner.
Yeah,
he is the first corner in the class to this point.
I mean, that's big news for Oklahoma. They've
hit every position group now.
Yeah, that is true.
I guess not tight end technically. Depends on how you categorize Trent Washington, but
is he a tight end?
Long term, I don't think so. I think he plays defense at Oklahoma.
I kind of agree. But he's a stud either way. We appreciate everybody watching. Sorry I was late. Dead stop traffic. I guess I cut I-40 down to one lane coming back from Choctaw with my sons. 7-on-7 stuff. So it is what it is, but we're here. And but with Hawkins, man, he's so refined, and naturally because his dad.
Yeah.
Right.
He's been trained. he's been trained from an early age to play the cornerback position, play it aggressively, play it in technically sound fashion. He is decidedly ahead of the curve in a developmental sense, because how many cornerbacks do you get, Brandon, that when they're 17, 18 years old, they're still learning the technique? Like, they're good athletes, and that's why they're at the position, and they've got good ball skills, all that type of stuff. But the technique specific to playing the cornerback position and all of the tips and tricks of the trade that you learn over the years are just novel to them, and they're still learning it in real time. Malik is a guy that, like I said, this is all he's ever done is play cornerback, and he's done some cross training at wide receiver, sure, but he was born a cornerback. He was bred as a cornerback, and now he's a Power 5 cornerback, Power 4 cornerback, set to play football at the University of Oklahoma, and certainly a guy that not only is ahead of the curve in the technical sense, but physically he looks like a Power 5 cornerback. And I hate to use this as a counterexample because the kid turned out to be really, really good as a true freshman, but Josiah Wagner showed up to campus last year and he was 158 pounds. And that was probably why you didn't see him a ton as a freshman, or at least not more than you did, because he was good, but he was also 165 pounds come the season. So Malik is a guy who's already 180. You would figure by the time he steps onto campus, he'll be in the 190 range, a legit 6'1", somebody that is not going to be out of his depth physically when matched up against SEC wide receivers, even early on in his collegiate career.
No, he's very, very proficient. I just remember at the Rivals camp last year, and I'm watching Malik and standing down there with his dad, and his dad would literally point out when he false stepped, when he would make a wrong move and then walk over and kind of correct, like, hey man, you did this on your next rep. Make sure your feet are here. Make sure your chest over knees, chest over feet. You're not off balance, all that type of stuff. It was kind of cool to see just how technical Malik is going to be. He is, but he's going to be because he's going to have the best trainer, a dad that literally played multiple seasons in the NFL and knows what he's doing. He practiced against Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and like players like that, having to go against guys that can fit balls in the tight window, passes in the tight window. I don't want to say balls in. Sorry, I'm so immature. But you get what I'm saying. Like he's
Less
just been
than 10
taught
minutes in, and we're already going off the
off the
rails.
rails.
Yeah, no, look, I think the greatest testament to who Malik is as a football player, and he's naturally going to struggle with the same thing that Eli Bowen struggles with as far as his public perception, which is the little brother factor. Oh, Peyton's really good. That's the only reason OU took Eli. Oh, Junior's really good. That's the only reason OU took Malik. I think the greatest testament to what Malik is and who he is as a football player is that his junior year highlights are barely highlights. And it's because the ball just doesn't get thrown his way.
No.
Which, if you're a cornerback and they don't throw your way, that means you're doing your job and doing it well. Because when you are a liability, you get targeted. When you're a good football player, but you don't necessarily have a reputation for being the dude, guess what? You get targeted.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're a lockdown corner and everybody knows you're a lockdown corner and quarterbacks understand that you can make them pay for a mistake at any given time, if you look their way, it's going to be a power outage on your side of the field. And that's what it was for Malik as a junior. He would go entire games without getting a ball thrown to his side of the field, period. Because people understood, okay, like this is a guy that not only has the genetics, the size, the speed, the athleticism, the technique, but he's also so intelligent and cognitively advanced as a corner that he's just going to have the awareness and all of those little ancillary characteristics from a mental standpoint that are going to enhance his play such that you can't look his way and hope to get away with it if your throw is misplaced even the slightest bit.
Yeah, he's going to be a fantastic player at Oklahoma. It's kind of cool to see. I was talking to somebody tonight specifically about the Hawkins, and they're like, you know what? Those are really good kids. You can just tell their dad raised them right. So I thought to me, that's a good testament more than anything else. Trent Wilson. That's a big get. That Todd Bates flexing right there, man. Todd Bates
2 weeks
flexing.
ago, who'd have thunk it?
No, yeah. Like that did not seem like it was going to happen. And then I think Oklahoma kind of put the pedal to the metal to regarding Trent Wilson. And here we are. It's just, you miss out on one and land another. I think that's kind of the best way to put it. I think you would love to be able to take your three top guys, and sometimes that's just not how things work. But Landon Rink obviously is a really good player, somebody Oklahoma's still recruiting. But to end up with Trent Wilson, are you kidding me? A guy that we see is probably going to be in the top 50 to 75 when it's all said and done. Just because defensive tackles generally, of his talent, generally move up very, very fast. And he's already started that move. That's the one thing. So you can kind of see that trajectory staying there. So, um,
The term wrecking ball is overused with regard to
hmm,
defensive linemen, but in some cases it is apt. And I think it is apt with Trent Wilson. He's a wrecking ball, man.
no doubt. Hey, go ahead and read Virgil because it's towards you, man.
Wait, Virgil dropped us a super chat, my
Yep.
man. No question to ask. Y'all are great. You're my go-to for Oklahoma insider information. I'm here in SEC country, Georgia, waiting for my Sooners to arrive. Ready to represent. Shout out to my guy Parker. Thanks for the work you do. Hey, thanks for the work you do as well, Virgil. There is as much love on this end for you as there is on your end for us. So it goes both ways, my friend. Thanks for your
Yep.
contribution.
So let's talk about corner and let's talk about defensive tackle. You got Trent Wilson on board. Let's start with defensive tackle. You and I kind of feel like Cole Breiler is very much in the picture, right?
He is very much in the picture. Floyd Boucard is very much in the picture.
There's the other
Christian Evans is very much in the
one. Yep.
picture. All three of those guys are OVing in June. And between Breeler, Boucard, and Evans, Brandon, we know there is one spot. There might be two. There certainly aren't three.
No.
Which means, because I would go as far as to say, having talked to all three of those guys relatively recently, OU is in the driver's seat in all three of those recruitments.
Yeah,
they
that's the
lead right
crazy
now.
thing.
That doesn't mean the lead holds, but they're in the best position right now. To think that you might have to turn somebody away, you might have to turn a defensive tackle away. How does that make you feel as a fan? I'd love to know the pulse of the fan base on that. If I told you Oklahoma's going to have to turn away either Cole Breeler, Floyd Boucard, or Christian Evans, boy,
How the
what does that have you?
turntables
How does
have
that have you
turned.
feel?
How the turntables have turned. In the
Because,
words
like,
of the great.
I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, Brandon. As I see it, I would be willing to make room for a fourth guy, because if you watch Breeler's tape, you watch Evans' tape, you watch Boucard's tape, none of those guys are just a throwaway take, right? That's not a flyer by any means. All of those guys are certified dudes on the
What
football.
happens if Rink comes back around Oklahoma?
I don't think that's happening. I think he's got enough reasons to stay locked in with Texas A&M.
I agree, but let's play the what if game. What do you do?
Well, it depends on when that happens. If it happens in May, maybe your priorities get rearranged a little bit. If it happens in August, well, at that point, I feel like you'd have to tell the kid, hey, thanks, but you had your chance. We're full.
The one thing I do know, and we've talked about this before, is that Oklahoma will make room for extra defensive tackles. That's like and how smart is that? I mean, that's the anchor of your defense. Yeah, you're going to make room. If you have a good defensive line, the chances are your defense is going to be good because that quarterback's not going to have all day to throw, which in turn makes your corners and linebackers look better. And so I think that's probably going to be the biggest difference in this year's team, 24, is you're going to see the best. I don't want to say best. You're going to see the most talented defensive line that you've ever seen in Norman in over a decade. Is that fair? So, I mean, like that's the recruiting they're doing. And people keep asking, what about this guy? What about this guy? Well, let's talk about that with the corner, because Tristan Haynes keeps being brought up. You have Cortland Guillory, you have Kobe Sellers, like you've got options. Yeah, there's picks for Tristan Haynes to Notre Dame. He's got family and close family friends up there that work for Notre Dame, not specifically on the football staff, but in the athletic department. So there's a connection there that is really helping Notre Dame there, and good for them. Good for them. If he does decide to be the outcast of Carl Albert and wants to go to Notre Dame,
outcast maybe isn't the right word. Outlier.
Outlier, I guess. But outcast being like the only one that's not committed to Oklahoma, I guess, is what the outlier is what I mean. I don't mean that as like a negative thing. My point is, I was about to say, who can fault him? because Marcus Freeman can coach defense. Like, we
Yes,
know
he can.
this. So, like, nobody can fault him for doing that. Does it suck for Oklahoma that one of their top players in the whole state is potentially leaving? Yeah, but if you can follow that up with Cortland Guillory or Kobe Sellers or both,
or
go ahead,
Shante Stewart,
Sean.
because
Yeah,
that's a
or
real
that.
thing too. That
Okay,
is a
then
real
you're
thing
then
too.
you're doing okay.
Yeah.
You're doing okay. You're going to be just fine. That's my point. And I think Oklahoma's in a really good spot for the two that I mentioned, Cortland Guillory and Kobe Sellers. I think a good spot might be an understatement, to be honest with you.
And I think it's an easier thing to swallow if Tristan Haynes goes elsewhere, if it is indeed Tristan Haynes, right? Because you've kind of gotten the sense, especially if you remember it over at OU Insider for quite a while now, that Tristan Haynes was just never in love with OU to the extent that some of the other guys in
Yeah, he
state
just
were.
wasn't.
Like,
Yeah.
so there was just something, there was a different vibe in that recruitment. There always has been. And so if he's the one that decides to go his own way, I think that's a pretty easy thing to reconcile with for most Sooner fans, a lot more so than if, say, Elijah Thomas had gone to Alabama, right? Or if Marcus James had gone to like TCU.
I
You
think
get
I
it.
think Nate Roberts going to Ohio State would be a kick in the
Oh man, that would
groin.
suck. Yeah, no, that would suck, especially with how long the Sooner staff has been recruiting that kid and developing that relationship and how many
Yep.
times he's been to campus. Yes, if that happens, that will hurt. It will
That'll be
hurt.
the biggest one
And
to me.
yeah, and OU will not be without recourse if that happens, certainly. They have other elite targets at the tight end position. But Nate Roberts is definitely a guy that if he walks, if he commits somewhere else, you're going to feel that. Will you feel it if Tristan Haynes goes to Notre Dame or elsewhere? Not to that extent, in my mind.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. Like, I know Nate Roberts is really good friends with Tristan. He's really good friends with all the Carl Albert guys. He trains with them, works out with them during the summer, does all those things. And that was interesting, to see that happen. And again, those close family ties, that holds more weight than probably anything. And it is what it is. So, and it's not to say that it's over. It's just that it's not looking good, you know? So, um, let's, we went over like who we thought was going to be in the class. And it almost feels like everything's kind of following suit with what we talked about. Was that like a podcast ago, 2 weeks ago when we did that? It's crazy, man. Like, this 25 class is it's fourth. And if they land the guys that they still have left on board, there isn't that big, name outside of Jonah Williams that's still really left for them to grab in. And I guess Ty Haywood, Michael Fasusi. But I think we both feel Ty Haywood is probably more likely than Michael Fasusi, right, at this juncture.
Yes, I would say so.
So you want to know some good news on the defensive back front? From talking to people that know the Jonah Williams recruitment, and then talking to some other people that I know, the window has opened back up a little bit for Oklahoma quietly. So very, very good things have been happening. So we'll see if that continue to trend. I think Oklahoma getting a Marion Robinson back with his parents to Oklahoma for the spring game is going to be huge on that front. His relationship with newly committed Marcus Wimberly is huge, which we didn't even talk about that. We had a podcast with him on it, but we haven't even talked about that. I mean, that was another huge commit. I mean, they are stacking chips in each and every class, which is going to help Oklahoma tenfold moving forward. All right. Old Shucks of the Hills, $5. Thank you so much for that, man. Hey, fellas, big fan out here in Tahlequah. How worried should fans be about the O-line? Some people seem to be hitting the panic button like mad. Look, it hasn't been great. You have to remember they're without Gearin Hatchett right now, right? Like, so they're down one guard. They're without Troy Everett, so they're down a center. So they're having to work some pieces there. That can get frustrating. I've been also told that they are actively trying to confuse the O-line, actively trying to confuse Jackson Arnold and the other quarterbacks. They're putting them in very precarious situations right now with one of the better defenses in the SEC that they're going up against. So that in itself is a problem. But I think, and this is what I was told yesterday by somebody that sees it all the time, every day. If it's happening in the middle of August to like August 20th, the week, about 10 days before they play their first ball game, yeah, hit the panic button. Until then, things are going to happen. The roster's going to change after when the spring portal opens. There's going to be additions. There's going to be subtractions. There's going to be some difference makers added. There's going to be some guys that leave. So let them move the pieces and put that puzzle together and then see where it goes. That's kind of been the calling card that everybody's kind of stood by that I've talked to. Nobody's denying that it's not been great, but they've had some guys step up that they were surprised in how well they're doing. Jake Taylor has had a really solid spring. Everybody knew Fabici Wewu was going to be a dude, and no matter who you talk to, that dude can ball. That's all they say. Jake Sexton has been really good. Tarquin has looked decent at times, good enough that he's going to be a good rotation guy, potential starter. They may play him at guard. They may play him at one of the tackles. He's not going to beat out Sexton. I'll say that. He's not going to beat out Taylor. Spencer Brown's in a battle with Taylor. Taylor's just beating him right now. Taylor's having a good spring. So you put Gearin Hatchett in there from the Joe Moore Award-winning Washington offensive line, and you feel a little better. The only thing you got to worry about is I don't think Troy Everett's going to be back by the start of the football season. That's just my gut from what I've heard. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, good. That's great. But if not, they need to find somebody, Parker. Because that the whole snapping the ball thing's pretty important.
It is pretty important. No question about that. And you would think that'll be a pretty easy thing for Bill Bedenbaugh to get cleaned up, because he is Bill Bedenbaugh after all. And there are a few things that are, or rather should be, as easy as the mechanics of snapping the ball, comparative to everything else that he's running his O lineman through as far as footwork and assignments on any given play, pulling, all that type of stuff. The mere action of snapping the football in the grand scheme of things should be something that they get to the point where it's pretty seamless, regardless of who the center is. So there's a lot on Josh Bates' shoulders, no doubt, because he's kind of got to be the guy. Because if it's not him, then who is it? Like that's the big question. If not Josh Bates, then who? So you'd hope that Bates continues to come along and continues to prove that he is worthy of stepping into those shoes, even if only temporarily, until Everett gets hurt. But who knows? Maybe he seizes the bull by the horns. Maybe he ends up being a long-term starter, and that'd be a great thing.
Yeah, be a great thing. Jacob Matthews, thank you so much for the $20. Obviously, I love the talent we are getting. How worried should we be about good players getting into the portal? That was going to be the next topic we were going to talk to. So thank you for the segue. I think about the linebackers, wide receivers specifically, all have a lot of talent. but we can only play so many. Great point. And thank you so
I
much again for the super chat. Go ahead.
I would wager that before this fall, there will be at least one linebacker and at least one wide receiver that ends up in the transfer portal.
Agreed.
And it's you have an embarrassment of riches. You have too many dudes at those positions. You have too many dudes across the board, just in general, right now. You're what, 8 scholarships over, 7 or 8, and so
I thought
they're
they're
gonna.
4.
Oh, 4? Is
I
that
thought it
all it
was
is?
4. Yeah,
Okay, well, that's less of an issue then if it's only 4. Um,
but it's still an issue.
it is still an issue,
And
and the
maybe I was wrong, but I know I spoke to a source the other day and he said 4 over.
and
Exact words.
what are the 2 easiest position groups to remove depth from right now and still feel just as strongly about those groups as you did before you nicked the depth, as it were?
As long as it's not one of your top guys.
Wide receiver, linebacker. Yeah, obviously one of your top guys. Like you're not processing somebody on the 2 deep, but if you got a guy that's just kind of floundering and doesn't have an immediate path to playing time this year, and maybe he doesn't have quite the promising future that you see in some of his peers, that's the type of guy that's going to be on the chopping block. That's the harsh reality.
Yeah, so I was reading here. Teddy and Gabe say we only have one starting tackle. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Spencer Brown and Jake Taylor are battling it out. So, um, Jake Taylor has been the starter right now, but it's spring. Nothing's set in stone. Like Jake Sexton has been working with the twos, being kind of the leader of the young guys, teaching them the calls, teaching them everything. But I can almost guarantee you he's your starting left tackle come the season. Like, we know this. He has been nothing short of really good the whole time he's been in Norman. So, and healthy. So I think that's the other thing. So but yes, I get what they're saying, yes, and I agree. Jake Taylor, Spencer Brown battling out at that one um tackle spot. So anyways, let's the I think what this Jacob Matthews was talking about, Parker, though, was Josh Pate's teams are going to become contenders that weren't, and it's going to be one of the craziest portal windows of all time. And there's going to be players that you didn't expect that are going to be leaving your program. He said it kind of generalized, going to be leaving your program that you didn't expect. He wasn't like saying Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, like those are the types. Well, I could see that. Totally could see that happening.
And obviously, I think what everybody's going to be wondering as well, does OU have a layer of insulation from all of that? Like, is Oklahoma going to lose some big time contributors? Offhand, I don't think so, but I can't sit here and make any promises. Look, if you had told me on December 1st that Caden Green was going to be in the portal within the week, I'd have told you you're a moron. I mean, you could have knocked me over with a feather when that news hit. But guess what? That's the new era of college football. That's the world we live in now. Nobody's safe. And there are ways to back channel, and there are loopholes to exploit, and everybody's tampering. And I don't know if you can even call tampering anymore, because it's just
illegal, so whatever.
Yeah, it's so prevalent and everybody knows it's going on to the point where nobody's really trying to stop it. And it's the name of the game. And I can't promise you that Oklahoma ends up getting out of the spring portal window without any major casualties. I think you would hope that's not the case. And I think you would trust that with everything that the Oklahoma program stands for and the type of people that Brent Venables has made an effort to surround himself with, both on staff and in that locker room, that Oklahoma would have less attrition in that regard than your average P4 program of that caliber. But everybody's got a price, right? Everybody's got a price. So what happens if somebody comes along with that price to somebody on Oklahoma's roster. It could happen. It could very well happen. And when it does, that's going to be a tough day for OU Twitter. That's going to be a tough day for this fan base, because I think then it's really going to hit. If it didn't, when the whole Caden Green fiasco went down, that's where it's really going to hit you. Oh, like this is normal now. This is the way of the world.
It's going to turn some people away from college sports. They better get it fixed fast. I just, and we get asked this question all the time. I got asked in the chat today on our message board. Have you heard any buzz regarding Oklahoma? And some people, obviously they're not in the portal yet, but names that could be getting in the portal that Oklahoma could be going after. And I think Parker and I can resoundingly say yes. Yes, there's buzz. And it's not that Oklahoma's tampering. It's that you get these people's handlers and the people around their family and all that. They'll reach out and tell you, like, my son's thinking about the portal in Oklahoma, blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of where that comes from. So we have, yes, heard some names, some good names, but they got to hit the portal. There's no use in even talking about them. There's no use even bringing them up as far as like their names, active names, because you never know what's going to happen when they go and tell their program, oh, I'm getting the portal. Well, they may ante up and the kid may stay, and you all's hopes got up for no reason. That's why I know people ask us all the time, why can't you just say it? Why would we say it? Like, get your hopes up and then it doesn't happen. The Bear Alexander crap is a prime example, right? He's transferring. He's getting in the portal today. You have Texas media holding live podcasts today, this morning, as a matter of fact, talking about Bear Alexander and what he's going to bring to Texas. 3.5 hours later, he announces he's staying at USC. That is why we don't bring up names before they actually get in the portal and or are effectively have told their school, right? Like that is why you don't do it.
What do you think happened between yesterday and today out in SoCal at Bear Alexander's penthouse apartment?
They dropped the bag, homie. And that bag was probably thick with $1,000 bills.
He had what, 2.5 tackles for loss this last year? Something like that.
Yeah. And probably got close to $800,000 because of it.
Man, I wish people knew how much money they paid him last year. Or
yeah, it's so stupid.
Promised to pay him.
I don't 2.5. And see, the people are like, DJ Hicks. No. Stop. That name is never going to leave Oklahoma until he goes.
No, it never will.
Until he goes pro. It's always going to be.
Yeah, he'll be getting ready to enter his name in the NFL draft in 2026. And everybody will be going, it's DJ Hick. Could he take another year and transfer to Oklahoma? Yeah, it's.
Have you looked at the chat and see the name that everybody's talking about?
Gabriel Brownlow Dindy?
Nope.
Got to mention?
Yeah, but that's not who got the most mentions.
Ollie Gordon? Ollie Gordon's getting brought up. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, that's that one.
I know
I'm not even going there.
I know this much.
Go ahead.
He is making a lot of money at Oklahoma State. And I also know this much. The amount of money that he's making at Oklahoma State, and I do happen to know the number, that number could easily be blown away by a school that decided, you know what? We'll want a Doak Walker candidate. Yeah, we want a Heisman Trophy candidate in our backfield. Like if somebody wanted to go buy Ollie Gordon, they could go buy Ollie Gordon. A school that's willing to spend money indiscriminately. Like, would it be wise to invest that much money into a single player? My answer would be no. But if, and I'm maybe looking at that from an Oklahoma perspective, if an elite running back is the missing piece that's going to help put you over the top and make you a championship football team, which I don't know, pick an example from across, maybe Oregon. Maybe Oregon. You got Dylan Gabriel running the show. You got good wideouts. You got a solid defense coming back. If you feel like, if Dan Lanning feels like, you know what, if we had a Heisman Trophy candidate in the backfield, we could play for a national championship this year. Well, then they could very feasibly go and buy Ollie Gordon off Oklahoma State's roster. That would be that would not be the toughest thing in the world to make happen.
Yeah. I mean,
but again, like if I said the number, everybody would be like, that's an insane amount of money. But that's what kind of money's getting thrown around these days for the best players in college football.
yeah, and I'll say this, people that think that Oklahoma doesn't pay an insane amount of money for some of their players are just they do. They do. They do. Again, we'll reiterate this coming. They paid $4 million last year for their roster. They're going to more than double that this year for 2024.
It just means more,
and they're not done. So, like, there's money to be had in Norman, Oklahoma. So, and Parker and I even heard for a fact that it's actually more, the culture stuff is still there. Not a lot of people talk about what they're making in the locker room, right? Like that's kind of the thing that they really hold dear to their heart there. But I think Oklahoma is more open to going and saying to a recruit, a target, a transfer target, this is what you're going to make. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do through the collectives, right? So it's very much changed since 2022. Because remember, in 2022, there wasn't like NIL was like almost scoffed at. They went 6-7 and everything changed. Like, because everything changed around college football. So you have Venables does a really good job in his program of balancing NIL and culture. And I think that's one thing that a lot of the top schools do, right? Like they don't, the schools that you see continuously going 7-5, 8-4, and they have like magnificent rosters, it's because they don't have a culture and everybody there is just for a paycheck. It's not a team. And I think that differentiates from the top tier teams versus the bot teams, in my opinion, particularly in college. So,
somebody brought up Gabriel Brownlow in the chat.
I know.
Man,
no.
And apparently he just hasn't been able to stay healthy since he got to Texas A&M. I was actually talking to a couple of people about him over the weekend, and it is a shame. I hope he can do something before his collegiate career wraps up because he was, oh my goodness.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
His tape in high school
against top tier teams.
Yeah. That is
I saw it in person.
Like. You go watch Gabriel Brownlow Dindy's high school tape. That, folks, is what a 5-star prospect looks like.
Yep. Saw it in person. It was freaking awesome. He blocked a punt from the edge at 280 pounds. That's how fast he got back there. It was impressive. And it was like for safety. It was like in the end zone. The ball almost hit me. Like I was like dodging it and trying to take a photo at the same time as he batted it through the end zone. Like he was an impressive cat. All right. So what's next for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail?
What's next?
Yeah,
is probably I'll bet you get one at the spring game. I don't know who.
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly it'll be announced. I'll bet you get one at the spring game.
I wonder if Oklahoma can pull off a Marion Robinson at the spring game. That would be something.
It'd be huge. I'm
I,
skeptical
I'm skeptical, but
because
yeah.
he's got that Georgia OV on the slate. He's got that
Yep, May
Oregon OV on the
31st. Yep.
slate. I
I the Oregon one though, I don't want to word this. If I'm betting man right now, I bet it gets rearranged.
okay, that'd be big time because it's supposed to be on the Champion Barbecue weekend right
Yeah.
now. That's when he's
I
scheduled
think
to take that OV.
Oklahoma is hoping that the visit for the spring game changes that up a little bit. That's the hope.
Yeah.
What about Tony Agumaro?
Yeah, Anthony Agumaro is somebody that, he's setting all these official visits right now. And just announced another one yesterday to Missouri. I think he's got him set to K-State and to North Carolina and to he goes to Oklahoma State this weekend, actually. But there is certainly a world right now with the comfort level he has in Norman. There is a world where he just decides after the spring game, you know what? I'll still announce on May 21st, but I'm done taking visits. I'm done seeing other schools. I'm ready to be a Sooner. I do think that's very feasible. If I had to put money on somebody locking it down at the spring game, my money would be on Ogumaro. Man, it's just what's crazy to think is like this class is probably going to be done or close to it by the last day of the Champion Barbecue on June 23rd.
Publicly, probably by July 31st, you'll have a majority of it done.
And I'll bet you there are some guys that are going to start feeling the pressure here in the weeks to come as to whether they actually want to be Sooners or not. Because, man, this Sooner staff's starting to flex their muscles. I mean, OU Insider fans know this as well. The Sooners just about got a commit over the weekend that was on campus for the very first time on Saturday.
Yeah.
The staff is cooking.
And that was a good player, too.
Everybody's putting in work right now on the recruiting trail, and you're starting to see the dividends.
Yeah. Basketball portal wise, you got Padula coming in after the dead period.
Oh, they got to have him.
They got to, but that doesn't solve very much, right? It sounds like Jalen Moore's going to come back after he goes through the NBA draft stuff because he wants to get his name out there. But outside of that, yeah, there was a tweet out there yesterday. That was yesterday or the day before where, Houston's going to be another top 5 team. They're going to get this big name. I'm telling you right now, like if you're on OU Insider, I've hinted about this for a while. And it is a former Sooner. So that they're rolling with potentially in a very good spot. So, I don't know. If they get Padula, like, do they have any other options on the board right now that they feel comfortable with?
Kevin Overton is another guy that, you kind of feel like maybe there's not that same gotta have him factor as there is with Padula, but boy, he'd be nice, wouldn't he? If you got Padula and Overton,
he's got 3 years left.
That's a good backcourt. Like obviously you'll add another guard or two, but you don't have to sweat your backcourt anymore if you can lock down those two. Then you can turn the majority of your attention and investment of resources into shoring up the front court.
Yep.
Because you'll need it.
Okay.
Robbie Avila, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, future savior of OU basketball.
There you go. They don't have
a chance. They don't have a snowflake's chance in hell with that kid because he's going to make NIL money out the wazoo in the transfer portal and wherever.
You're talking about the Kentucky kid,
the Indiana State kid.
Oh, I was thinking of the Kentucky's 5 stars asked out of his NLI and
No,
he's going to
Robbie
go back in.
Avila, the Rec Specs guy
That's
from
right. Rex.
Indiana
Oh yeah,
State, who averaged like 19 points a game. Yeah,
yeah.
he'll make a lot of NIL money somewhere,
He's
and
Dickerson size NIL from
O-
Michigan. Yeah, it's Kansas now.
Oklahoma's probably not going to be his best offer.
All right. Before we close this out, let's answer a few of these super chat questions. Not super chat, but just chats questions. If you want to, super chat will bump you up to the top, but I'm going to go through and try to answer some of this stuff. Um, he said the trap house booming called him Larry Blurred because of the. Well played, sir. Well played. Um, how are we feeling about the Kansas tight ends? Is Oklahoma on the outside looking in? Talking about Brame and obviously Lincoln Cure.
I don't think they get Lincoln Cure.
I agree.
I don't know if that ship has sailed completely, but things are fading. Brame, I'm still hopeful. I'll say that. Much like Amarian Robinson, I think the problem right now is that Brame has his OV to Oregon set for the Champion Barbecue weekend. And he's going to OV to OU. He will. The question is, when will it be?
Right.
Will it be the 14th, or can you get him to move things around with Oregon and show up on the 21st? I would go as far as to say this. If he's in Norman for the Champion Barbecue weekend, if the Sooners can find a way to swing that, they're getting that kid.
Yeah.
Now, if his visit occurs any other week or any other weekend, I should say, then you're still fighting an uphill battle. And you probably got to knock it out of the park on the OV to be able to lock him down, because Oregon will continue to maintain the advantage as long as they host him on June 21st through the 23rd.
One more joke with Avila. Seth Eatson called him Milk Chamberlain.
He's got like a dozen different nicknames, and they're
Yeah.
all amazing.
Yeah. All right. Stephen G, I'm calling it Haywood commits at the spring game. That would be huge. Can't see it happening, but that would be huge. Call your shot, bro. Call your shot. Any news, GM, any news on the new facilities? NIL way more important than new facilities right now. And I think that's what Oklahoma's focusing on. It's not that the new facilities aren't ever going to happen. It's just that right now, what they're trying to do until everything becomes in-house, right? And it's going to happen in the next few years. Like NIL will be in-house. They will be paid employees of the athletic department or the football program. They will still be making lots of money because the football program makes a lot of money, but that money will then be used. A certain portion of it will be then used for NIL. And then the donors can donate more into it as they go. And they don't have to donate as much. We've also heard that the SEC is going to take a portion of what they give, right? Down the road. Like this is a possibility. I think Jason's one that said this. Remember, they're going to take a portion of kind of the income and then divvy out an extra 5 million to each of the SEC schools to try to give them a leg up whenever that's legal to do. So there's a lot of different things that are going to take place that are going to it's going to help Oklahoma on the NIL front, because obviously they're going to be making buku's more money in the SEC, which means the athletic department will be able to afford way more. Like probably you get the donors throwing in 10 million and the athletic department could probably have 15 million into the actual NIL pot every year, $25 million. The money's going to go up, but there'll be a salary cap, I think they're trying to get collective bargaining. They're trying to get players unions for that the players sign, right? That, you know, it's a kind of a free trade agreement, all that's fair trade agreement, all that type of stuff that's what Congress, that's what the NCAA is trying to do. That's what everybody's trying to kind of piece together to rein some of these the wild wild west back in a little bit. And so we'll just see how long that takes. It's going to be crazy.
Somebody in the super chat asked, is OU still in on Emmanuel Choice? Yes. Yes. Oklahoma is very in on Emmanuel Choice. I would say they lead for Emmanuel Choice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a member at OU Insider, you know some very recent, very juicy details about the Emmanuel Choice recruitment. But I will say this, and I have said this before several times. What worries me is the fact that he's going to OV to both Missouri and USC.
Yeah.
And as long as those two schools have OVs on tap with the kid, can't take anything for granted. Cannot take anything for granted.
But he's supposed to be at the Champy, right?
He is. Oklahoma will get him on campus for the Champion Barbecue. That will be his last official visit.
Mm-hmm.
You would figure that if it comes to that, if he is uncommitted by then, he's going to be a Sooner. Because, like, you know, if he goes to LA or he goes to Columbia and what you worry about happening as a Sooner fan does end up happening, odds are the kid just shuts it down that weekend, right?
Yep.
And so as long as he gets through those official visits without committing, I think you feel really good about OU and Manny Choice heading into that Champion Barbecue weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Are some grads and seniors going to have NIL pay for their school so that OU can open up some scholarships? It doesn't matter. I think that's what people don't understand. And Kim Hurst, I totally get your question because we're asked that a lot. They can't have any more than 105. So whether it's moved over to NIL, preferred walk-on status, one, I don't think a lot of kids would like that, particularly seniors, particularly guys that have put a lot of sweat equity and blood equity into the program. Probably not going to go over well. Two, it doesn't matter because the number's still, yeah, you've opened up a scholarship number, but they're already at near that 105 right now. So you would have to push out somebody else to make that happen. And I don't know how Oklahoma can manage that because they've got some pretty big time players that are on NIL scholarships at Oklahoma. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. How is the Andrew, I'm assuming talking about Babaloa, he said Andrew B, but I'm assuming you're talking about four-star offensive lineman Andrew Babaloa recruitment going. You want to dive in on that one? I mean, it's been up and down with Oklahoma.
It has. He has a lot of very diverse interests right now.
Mm-hmm.
He visited Alabama recently. He likes Michigan a lot. Missouri is involved. And so that one is probably a ways off from getting decided or from anybody even having a reliable indication of where he ends up. But he is a five-star offensive tackle. And one thing you know about five-star offensive tackles is that the market for their services in terms of financial investment is massive. I guess I will put it like this. I'm going to have to see a five-star left tackle make his decision for something other than NIL before I believe that a five-star left tackle makes his decision for something other than NIL, because we're talking crazy money.
Yep.
Left crazy tackle. Money. It kind of, you remember the opening scene of The Blind Side?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Sandra Bullock's talking about how the highest paid player is the quarterback and the second highest paid player is the left tackle. That's about where we are in college football right now. So you think about quarterback money being the barometer. One step below that is left tackle money, and one step below that is still a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, 2 questions here on 26, and then we'll shut this thing down. Over under 1.5 commits for 26. talking about more commits for the 26 class by the start of the season, I'll go over.
I will say over as well.
Yeah.
I think
Because
there's
they're going to
something
have
like,
more events, by the
yeah.
way. So,
Mason James just tweeted a picture not long ago of him with Emmett Jones today. I guess he was on campus again.
mm-hmm.
Mason James has been on campus more times than I can count.
Well, he lives 2 minutes away, but yes.
Exactly. Like that kid might set the record by the time his recruitment is done and over with and he's signed. That kid might set the record for most unofficial visits to Oklahoma. I've already got 6 logged in the system at Rivals, and I know I don't have them all.
Yeah. Who should OU fans hone in on for the 2026 quarterback? That was from Nick.
Darion Coleman's going to be on campus tomorrow.
Yep.
And
That's where I was going with that. Yeah.
I know Jaden O'Neal
It was
just
the only
visited.
reason why I read that one, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously, like, we'll have coverage of Coleman's visit. We'll have his reaction, all that type of stuff. We'll have that at OUinsider.com. I get that Jaden O'Neal just visited and said some very nice things about OU. He's visiting a crap ton of schools this spring, though. Mm-hmm. Like, he will see the majority of schools on his offer sheet. And so, yes, the vibes are good with that kid right now. How sustainable is that in the long run? With Darion Coleman, you know the background. You know the kid loves OU. You know, he's looking to commit early. It doesn't seem like he's as interested in playing NIL games at all. And with the talent that he brings to the table, I know he's a little bit slight right now in terms of his frame, but that arm talent is going to fly in the SEC. It will. And so if that's a guy you can get on board early and a guy that you can, a guy that will help start piecing together your 2026 class, well, then I think that's worth, because if you recall, there were some people, and I think it's hilarious in retrospect that this was even a take that people had. There were some people last summer that were saying, well, Michael Hawkins isn't that good, but it was worth taking him so that, you could get Devon Mitchell. If that's really, and obviously, like, we know now that has proven to be an asinine opinion already. But if you feel that Darion Coleman is going to be a non-factor in the Oklahoma quarterback room down the line, A, I'm not sure why you would think that watching if you have watched the tape. But B, even if you think he's going to be a non-factor, I would argue it's still worth taking the kid for the sake of who he could potentially bring along with him, because he is in Orlando, Florida.
Exactly.
And talk about a hotbed you'd like to tap into. Orlando, Florida is a place.
And one that Todd Bates and Oklahoma have been very, very strong with Tampa and Orlando area. They're not too far apart. Everything kind of runs together anyways. And they've built a very good rapport with that area while they were at Clemson and continued it at Oklahoma. Because look how many Central Florida guys are already on OU's roster. There's a handful already in a matter of years?
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma will pull a kid from Florida every now and again, but especially if you can get Coleman on the board early, you have a chance to do some damage in the Sunshine State in the 2026 class. When was the last time OU did some damage in Florida?
22. Yeah, it was 22 with Jaden Gibson and all those guys. Yeah, they did Florida that year. But they did damage. It was the very end, yeah.
Yep. They kind of lucked into that one in many ways. Now you can start, like, you get Coleman on board in, say, June or July. You got a year and a half. Got a year and a half to build a real nice nucleus for your 26 cycle, potentially from right there in Orlando.
All right. Thank you guys for watching this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. Obviously, Oklahoma landed 2 commits. Malik Hawkins, one of the top cornerbacks in the state of Texas, and one of the top defensive linemen in the country, in Trent Wilson out of the DMV, the same high school as Jalil Farouk. So if you want more of that information, OU Insider got a bunch of information from this past weekend, got a bunch of transfer portal stuff as far as basketball goes, with our man Brody Lush just killing it. We got softball, baseball, everything's covered for you. OU Insider VIP, $9.99 a month, $9.95 a month, excuse me, and or $99.95 will get you all the way to April 10th. of 2025, which gets you almost all the way to the spring game of next year, get you all through the season, get you all the visits, get you all the official visits, get you all the commitments through 26. It's going to be fun. Go to OU Insider, check us out, give us a try. You're going to be there with thousands and thousands and thousands of other OU fans that are commenting all day long, starting their own threads. You can start your own thread, ask us a question. You can do all kinds of stuff. Message boards free, open, fun. It's awesome. Go to OU Insider VIP. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel for daily updates on recruiting, for football, basketball, podcasts, softball, baseball. It's all right here on OU Insider YouTube channel. So hit that like, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to make sure you're notified every time we post a video. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining myself, Parker, Spencer. You guys have a blessed night.